Hey, Alex, how are you?
Good morning, Nick. Great to see you.
Great to see you. I'm so happy to have you like on this podcast. We just started it, and so we're having all of our favorite people coming on board. So,
Thank you.
so
You're so
thanks so
nice.
much for well, thanks so much for like joining. So we wanted to do this to give everyone an opportunity to kind of get to know just people within the community. They get to see you on stage every once in a while. For like a few minutes, and maybe in the corridors. But these longer formats are actually really kind of fun. So let's start. Like I think everyone would love to understand like your career path, and kind of how you started and what kind of led you to being this cybersecurity guru that you are.
Thanks, Nick. First, actually, it's very stressful and challenging to squeeze 30 years of experience into a few sentences. So, forgive me if I'm speaking too fast. I will try to break
Okay.
this maybe into four phases of my
Okay.
personal journey, and maybe we can have a discussion.
Yeah.
My background is in computer science. So I started as a software developer, and then I led software development for several products in the network space. So I started with networking. I know that
Mm,
this is very relevant for our discussion.
yeah.
But then I paused and I moved to the academic research. I did my
Ah,
PhD, and as part of my PhD, I developed advanced algorithms combining machine learning, AI, and computer vision
yeah.
to get new biological results.
Mm,
And what was amazing for me is that this technological innovation allowed really new biological insights that helped drug design and scientists around the globe. And for me, as a computer scientist, this was an amazing experience.
yeah.
I really,
What time period is this? What like kind of what decade is this?
we're talking almost 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing, really. You had kind of like real foresight there to kind of study, kind of algorithms and AI like back in the 30 years or so ago, like the 1990s or so. Yeah, great.
Exactly. But what was actually happening back then is that we didn't have cloud. So
Yeah.
for me to actually build these large scale searches and platforms that I have developed over biological data, I had also to build parallel and distributing computing all by myself.
Yeah.
So
So
this is
all right, so what motivated you
about the
though?
cloud.
What motivated you though? There had to be something that like you saw and that kind of triggered, okay, I really want to study this and apply this, to biological systems. So what was that trigger that was like,
Science is
I want to do
fascinating.
this?
Science is fascinating.
Hmm.
It is so exciting when you're taking biological data. In this case, I was taking structures of molecules in 3D space, and then you're just playing with them as a computer scientist. And then you're seeing new insights that you can't find in literature.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. This is why with so many computer scientists actually moving into biological research.
Hmm.
And we're still seeing many of them very active as amazing professors leading the research around the globe because computer science enabled us to see things that we couldn't see before.
Yeah.
And it is this
Yeah.
combination of machine learning, AI, and in my case, I was applying computer vision because you need to take molecules have three-dimensional structures. So we
Hmm.
cannot just look at them as chemical compounds. We need to look at them in three-dimensional space.
Yeah.
And when you're taking all this data and you're learning what you can from it, you're actually learning new things. Uh, so academic
Love
research
it.
is always fascinating. I
Well,
think
I'm fascinated by it too. It's yeah, it's like there's so much insight. It's like I think a lot of folks have gotten into like biomarkers these days, and and kind of tracking your own kind of biomarkers like over a period of time. Clearly, that's not the scale that we're talking about, here. But I think folks can kind of like relate to that, and the more that you can kind of understand biological systems, model them, and kind of see patterns with them, and that can actually lead to really great breakthroughs. So that was really great. So what caused the detour? Then towards kind of corporate computing. But also I want to say one thing. You mentioned something in there, and that was that about science and computer science, and it just reminded me of something that Doug Comer, Dr. Doug Comer from over at Purdue, gave a keynote once at ONU, And he said something, and it's stuck with me like all these years. And he basically said, all science is computer science, and all business is digital business. And I'm like, yeah, Doug is right, there. And so, you just kind of like, excited those synapses, in my, in the back of my head. So, anyway, so what brought you into kind of the corporate world?
Yeah, so first, cloud was the bottleneck back then.
Ah,
So I saw
mm,
that we can't easily innovate without cloud.
mm, yeah,
Because I had to build this by myself, and for me, it looked like a waste of time. We should be building this once for everyone. So this was the beginning of cloud. So this is why I moved to build early day cloud systems. But
ah,
when I started building them, I also started trying to hack them and see what may happen. And I realized that it is actually very easy to hack these early days cloud systems. And
yeah,
this is how I got into cloud security, understanding that
mm,
cloud security will be critical, that even though
yeah,
we're building these wonderful distributed systems, we need to protect them. So this is why I shifted to cloud security, and this was 16 years ago. And
yeah,
since then, this area is only growing. Unfortunately,
yeah,
as the cloud footprint becomes larger, we need to
mm,
manage more. We need to manage the cloud security posture.
yeah,
And it is still not easy to do. This is what I'm helping many organizations with, how to easily manage cloud security, how to
yeah,
feel comfortable with what you have, how to measure your cloud security posture. And I hope AI will be changing the picture here as well.
yeah,
Besides what
yeah.
will
Well,
come.
yeah, no, that's a great journey because, like, really, like, I kind of like put the beginning of kind of the cloud era around 2007 timeframe, like right around there, right? Like, iPhone came out around that time. I think AWS, launched their first service around that time frame, and that's really where you were at the very beginning of that, and that's, yeah, that's great. That's impressive, so I know you spent some time over at Citi, and like you had like a large engineering staff over there too, so it's like, can you talk a little bit about that journey and about that experience?
Yes. So what is happening in cloud is that cloud is this huge ecosystem with services and so many things that people are building in these cloud environments. And while we can bring products to monitor the cloud,
Yeah,
it is still not easy to protect the cloud because we want to prevent things or we want to respond quickly when something bad happens. Because if we'll go through the traditional flow of seeing something through the dashboard and then responding, it will take several hours. But there are
yeah,
things that we need to actually remediate immediately because we don't have the same perimeter architecture as before. So any
right,
misconfiguration in our cloud environments can immediately expose the data. So
yeah,
this is why organizations today need to invest a lot in cloud native security engineering
yeah,
because they
mm,
need to develop these, especially preventative and responsive controls that need to be integrated into the system. And many organizations cannot do this with external products. They cannot grant some SaaS application access to the environments to do these activities such as remediation because
yeah,
these activities require high privileges. So this is why at Citibank we invested a lot in this cloud native security engineering.
yeah,
We had dedicated experts, built amazing teams, really state of the art solutions. Um, and many organizations are doing the same. That's the reality of
yeah.
our cloud environments, that this is what we need to do. It's not as easy as bringing a product, connecting it, and saying, okay, problem solved.
I know
So
not too many people really kind of see that side of it, where it's like, you really, it's not so much of a shared responsibility. The responsibility is all on the consumer. You really have got to protect yourself and be in control of that. And I think that's, the more that most consumers kind of hear that, probably the better.
yes.
But that's it's a wonderful kind of journey. Thanks so much for sharing that. Now, you've actually shared a little bit of your personal journey, with me, and are you good sharing some of that? Because I was always blown away and amazed by kind of what you've done, especially in dance and and at a really high level. So
You're going too much back. Yes, I think dancing is not an option for me right now. I used to do gymnastics, but it was a long time ago.
yeah, well, yeah, I think you still have it in you, that's for sure. So but do you kind of like when you have those kinds of experiences like in your past, like they still are part of you, right? And so like especially like if you're like your exercise routine and like and how you kind of approach health, nutrition and stuff. So is there anything you can kind of share that was like that you picked up from those days and and that you kind of that carry forward today?
Sport is an addiction. Once you start with it, you cannot stop. So you're always looking for things that you can do. If it is not gymnastics, I used to swim, jogging. I think it's common to many people who did sports in their childhood.
Yeah,
Um, so I think it's just something that I cannot live without.
yeah,
I'm sure I'm
yeah.
not the only one.
Oh yeah, no, it won't me either. Exercise is a big part of my life. Like every day it's like I'll exercise, and if I don't, I'm kind of grumpy, and I don't feel accomplished, for that particular day. But I wasn't as accomplished as you were younger, So I'm, hats off to you. So all right, let's talk a little bit about kind of some industry stuff. So at the last time we were on stage over at ONID, we were talking about kind of the convergence of networking and security, and that has only accelerated like since as little as like last October. So how are you seeing that kind of materialize and manifest itself, in the marketplace?
Yeah, so this convergence is actually very interesting. And let me also highlight it is not new because even when organizations started building their early days network,
Mm,
they built them with perimeter architecture in mind. So
yeah,
building this perimeter is actually a security task.
yeah,
So we always had this connection between network and security. And many of the designs were done to implement certain security controls and isolate the organizations from the outside. So we had this from the very beginning, but it is only intensifying over the years. And
yeah,
now many organizations have this strategy for zero trust and network segmentation, and they're progressing with implementing these initiatives. Um, so the way I view this, there are actually two reasons for this convergence. One, because this is how we should be doing our designs.
mm,
We need to build our networks in a way that will be segmenting the network and minimizing the blast radius.
mm,
So that's something fundamental that we need to have. Then there is the second aspect of optimization. Because initially, when we just started with cybersecurity many decades ago, this was something new and sometimes it was separate and it was not well integrated. But
yeah,
now it is not new. And now cybersecurity should be integrated into all the designs.
yeah,
And this is the only way actually to optimize the performance. Because if we're adding security products after the designs are finished, then it will always add complexity. It will not, it will always be inefficient. So
yeah,
we need this convergence to do better designs, to optimize the performance of our networks and reduce costs, because we also
yeah,
need to have this holistic strategy with respect to products. And we cannot just jump and buy whatever is the best for each small threat or small feature that we need for network management. Then we'll end up with huge amount of products that are impossible to manage.
yeah. And which is like the case today, right? The sprawl around security products, like all over an organization, is crazy. It adds so much to the complexity. It creates vulnerabilities that you're trying to plug. And it's like this industry has evolved. Like, okay, here's a threat, and then that's an opportunity for a company to get launched, and then they launch, and they plug that one hole, and then there's another hole that gets plugged, and on and on. So so I think your thinking, which is really, I think, thought leadership, like right now in the industry, is to approach security really from the very beginning of when applications are being developed, and not as an afterthought, not as a bolt-on. That the kind of security teams need to be kind of part of the entire life cycle of an application, and the infrastructure needs to be built so that it's trusted. so you can actually trust this infrastructure, and so I think that's really new thinking in the industry that you're really spearheading, and I'm just like so glad that you're advocating this, and you're providing a lot of guidance right now in the industry for that. So so then, do you have kind of a roadmap, or like how you're thinking that people should start approaching this?
You mean for the convergence? How can
Yeah,
organizations optimize what they have right now?
yeah,
Actually, I think cloud will also play a major role in this, because
mm,
what happens with cloud, and actually this is something happening with every new platform. It is not just cloud. When we
mm,
need to bring something new, we first need to build a dedicated team and do what's the right for this new platform, because
yeah,
otherwise we'll never make it. We'll never move to production. So
yeah,
most organizations created cloud centers of excellence, and they've
hmm,
dedicated cloud and cloud security teams. And this is exactly what is needed. That's a very good thing. They established these centers, they enable the cloud, and they're increasing their cloud footprint. And that's a good thing.
yeah,
But now, and I hope in a few years, cloud will become a commodity. It will become the mainstream of most organizations.
mm,
So now is the time to actually optimize and better integrate and review the architectures that are done by the cloud team and the architectures that are done by the network team, identity team, and build this joint planning on how
yeah,
can we jointly better manage this going forward, so that it will be optimizing both the performance and costs.
yeah,
And I think it is this cloud integration that may also be driving other areas of convergence, uh, especially when we're talking about network and cyber,
mm,
because it is part of the same exercise. It may be
yeah,
driven by the same motivation to optimize, and then organizations will review, okay, we have this massive cloud footprint now. How can we optimize this with our existing network architectures? How can we optimize the security of all of this? Both the on-prem, the cloud, and the connectivity to on-prem. So I think having
yeah,
this holistic view on all of the environments will be very helpful.
yeah. That's so insightful. I think you know seems like kind of the enterprise journey into cloud really started to kind of become more ingrained like over the last 5 years or so, maybe six, years. And and I think in that process, that's when the organizations start to understand, okay, how are we going to do this? And that's why we had the kind of centralized, cloud platform teams or the cloud center of excellence, teams and so forth. Um, but I think in that time frame, everyone was still searching like, okay, well, really, who owns what piece of this, and and who's responsible for it, right? And I think what we've just discovered, like really, I think over the last like 18 months, maybe 24, is that it's really kind of like the network and the security teams that are really responsible for that infrastructure, that overall infrastructure, not just on the cloud side, but more importantly, you just alluded to that, is how does that integrate into the controls and the systems on-prem, and where you actually do have the whole end-to-end piece and you have control over that. One thing that the cloud does, it provides an amazing amount of convenience and flexibility around scaling up and scaling down. But you can't give that convenience up for control. So you need that control, and that's why I think these teams now, these kind of security and networking teams, are now kind of taking over kind of cloud infrastructure. So I think that's I think that's really great advice and good leadership on your part to kind of be advocating for that.
Thank you. And it is the integration. It is doing what is the best and finding the strongest team members that can do the tasks that are needed. So it's not cloud and network. It is cloud and network. It is together. How
Yeah,
can we jointly build these roadmaps? And it is the same for all the domains. It is the same for the integration with identity and access management systems, and then doing things like entitlement monitoring for cloud environments. It is the same for data protection, because
yeah,
we need to integrate cloud with all of our existing data protection processes and flows, so that it will be managed in the same way. But sometimes, let me also highlight this, because sometimes organizations are getting into these battles, the new way versus the old way. In
mm,
most cases, the right way is in between. We need to take
mm,
the good things that we have from our existing processes, We need to take the good things from the new approaches and cloud, and then we can find this best solution that is, in most cases, actually a combination of both, and not one way or the other. So
Yeah.
wanted to highlight this. It is just learning from past experiences, learning from the new technologies, and setting the strategy for the future.
Yeah, that's also insightful too. A lot of folks are just like, there's a knee-jerk reaction to kind of just throw everything out and start something new, and it's like, and the bottom line is that that's not effective. You already have that investment, and that's a great way to kind of upgrade your legacy, legacy tech. So going back to like maybe market manifestations of network and security convergence. So we've been talking about NOC and SOC transformation as a key area, and the more that we have been focusing on that within the community, the bigger it has become. So I think there's that component, of it. There's also reorganizations, that are happening, and there's no one right organization. I think it's not systemic, but it depends upon situational is really the word I'm looking for. It's situational based upon the organization. Okay, does the network and security teams that were in the cloud platform teams, do they come into the on-prem teams? Or do they basically have liaisons, between on-prem and the cloud teams? There's like a bunch of kind of like combinations there. Does all this go underneath the CTO? Does it go underneath the CISO? That's also a difference, like in the way people are approaching this also. And then maybe the third area is around OT and IT integration. That's a huge kind of convergence around network and security space. So not to kind of drill down heavily into all these, but do you have any kind of perspective on those kind of areas, or maybe something in addition, to that I didn't bring up?
Yes, just maybe to highlight the need for this integration. And from the cybersecurity standpoint, sometimes we're hearing this, oh, OT, that's something different. We'll just treat it differently. We don't need to report this with our cybersecurity metrics. These are separate systems. But looking at the history of cybersecurity breaches, unfortunately, many of the OT systems were also connected to IT systems. And when there is a breach, there is a big impact. So we cannot disconnect this. We do need to look at all the flows, all the connection points, look at this holistically, and then build joint solutions, and then also track metrics across both, presenting them jointly. Because unfortunately, we saw this cascading effect in some of the organizations.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Great. Let's shift a little bit. So I'm so glad that I didn't know that you had that background in AI and ML. So there's maybe just two things. One is like, let's first start with like how you kind of see AI's impact on kind of cyber. So why don't we start with that? And there's another topic I want to kind of bring up in a little bit.
Yes, so I think it is not that new. Most organizations already have some type of AI for many systems, not just cyber. And in the cyberspace, I think we have been seeing security products adding AI features for a while. I think it is the generative AI that is slightly changing the picture. That is what is new. But for cybersecurity, it is also not always needed for all the systems. So let me break this down to when we need generative AI and when we don't. If we just want to do analytics on what is going on, and this is something that many organizations already have, they can apply machine learning AI algorithms to the events and better understand what's going on. So this is something that is not new. This is happening for a while. But generative AI can generate code. It can generate new things for us. So this is what is new. It can be helpful for offensive security. It can be helpful to just generate the code for us to implement and better protect the systems. I think this is what we'll be seeing that we didn't see before. Unfortunately, it is also used by the other side. So not all of the aspects are that positive. Because sometimes attackers are actually experimenting with it faster. They don't need corporate approvals to start using AI to generate code. And that's
Yeah.
actually a disadvantage because then they can use these new technologies faster than we can. And there is this asymmetry that is happening around AI in general, that for attackers, it is much easier to use it, both for attacks and disinformation,
Hmm.
while we need to use it with kind of better controls and for purposes that I proved and really need them. So this asymmetry is concerning.
Yeah.
But what I hope to see is also actually two things. I think AI can help the systems to better protect themselves.
Hmm.
Because of this generative nature, that's what I'm looking forward to see. Can the
Yeah.
systems generate better code to protect themselves?
Yeah.
We're
That's
not there
interesting.
yet. It is more
Yeah.
futuristic, but
Yeah.
maybe the system can learn about itself and then can
Hmm.
implement the missing code that developers forgot to add. So
Yeah.
that's my hope. Maybe we'll
That's a
see
great. Yeah.
self-protection in the future.
Yeah.
Then I also hope to see self-attestation in the future. Because today we as humans are coming to check computer systems. I actually want computer systems to prove that they are compliant.
Yeah.
And previously, we were trying to translate human languages to programming languages. This is what we're
Mm.
doing as part of computer science. These are the first courses when we're coming to teach or when we're learning computer science, right? How to speak machine languages.
Yeah.
I hope that now actually machines will start speaking our language.
Yeah. Thank God. It was like, it's like, it's like I was a double E, and it's like, programming. That's why I'm a double E. Programming wasn't like my forte. I'm like, man, I gotta like, I gotta contort my thinking to like fit that narrative or to make that computer do something. It's like, yeah, it never
Yeah.
really kind of worked that well for me. Too bad. But anyway, that's why I get it. So yeah, so now it's more kind of natural language, and we can speak to it. Okay,
Yes.
sorry, go ahead.
Yes, and I hope that I hope that now machines will prove that they're compliant and they will improve themselves to be more secure.
Yeah,
We're still not there yet, but that's my hope for the upcoming years.
yeah,
See how this.
that's actually really insightful. Yeah, so like if the systems can actually learn their own vulnerabilities, and then can mitigate those vulnerabilities, then they become much more impenetrable. That would be great. We're about to launch the AI networking summit at ONUG, and one concept that we're all actually just excited about is it's very similar to what this model that you just talked about, but instead of just kind of like on the security side of it, what if there was like kind of an AI kind of orchestrator and an AI kind of observability agents that worked on behalf of an application and that would basically configure that infrastructure, taking lots of inputs in real time to deliver the best experience, to a consumer of a particular application. That's a very different model from like how we've been building infrastructure before. There's a lot of tweaking, there's a lot of toil associated with this infrastructure. And so so what will it take? What's the kind of the pathway for us to get that kind of orchestration, configuration, change management, automation, in? But I think that's the overall direction. You agree?
Yes, yes, and I hope we'll start seeing this
Yeah.
because we're already seeing this as part of products, all types of products.
Yeah.
So I think we'll have better tooling pretty soon, and it will be mostly about how now are we orchestrating all these AI
Yeah.
features that we're getting from everyone. So once again,
Yeah.
we'll get into consolidation later on. Similar to, I think the journey will be similar to policy as code because
Yeah.
we already have policy as code in so many places, and now we just need to aggregate this and consolidate. I think the same will be happening with AI and the AI features that we'll start seeing them, but we'll need to have this holistic view on everything that we're getting from all these smart machines now. So
Yeah.
someone will need to map this to what we want to see and then manage all of those AI features, bots, and everything that we'll be getting.
Yeah, I love the world that we're entering into. So it's AI tooling, within the infrastructure, itself, because like there's such a shortage in security engineers and network engineers. We're never going to fill those gaps, and so there's a real need from a kind of a not just skill set but just people, to actually fill these jobs and do these roles. And so I think there's so that offers hope there. And then also it offers hope that these AI tooling can actually help us simplify this infrastructure, and actually build trust back into the infrastructure, as well, so that developers can feel, that trust, infrastructure teams can feel the trust that the infrastructure is trustworthy and that it can actually deliver what we're kind of saying that it's going to deliver. So I think we're entering into like a really kind of a golden era, of how we wire up a really large decentralized, organization, and maintain it, keep it going, as well.
Yes, but as a cybersecurity professional, I need to mention that the future is not that bright.
Oh my God. I'll leave it to a sayer. Leave it to a security expert.
Exactly. These wonderful AI tools will be powerful. So if we're giving these systems privileges, for example, to remediate things, or we're saying, okay, this system can do self-protection,
Yeah.
it means that the system will have privileges to modify itself.
Yeah.
It means that these systems will be targeted by attackers, because if abused, they may modify the system to do something that we don't want the system to do.
Right.
So these are the risks that we'll need to manage, and we'll need to carefully monitor all of the modifications that the system may do to itself.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the future will not be all bright. We'll be seeing, as we'll be progressing with these tools, we'll be seeing more advanced attacks, and we will always need to control these systems.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about kind of like how you trust the infrastructure. How do you trust the AI tools, as well? So, do you remember like Cisco launched something? I think it was in the early 2000s called NAC, Network Access Control, so that if there was some kind of anomalistic behavior, it would basically empower the network to create a isolated VLAN, and then it would move that traffic into that VLAN, raise some security alert, for someone to take a look at it. That was so, I'm not sure how large that ever got implemented. I think everyone was just didn't trust it, and it's not that they didn't trust Cisco. Obviously, people trust Cisco, but they just didn't trust. They didn't want to give those privileges, to the infrastructure to do that. So I think I think you hit really, the nail, and that is really about, how do we get comfortable with, and what's that journey like to trust this infrastructure to work on behalf of the policies that are set forth, and how do we check that those policies are actually being enforced, and that there isn't a hack of the AI tools, or the AI tools don't malfunction in some really horrific way. So I think
Yes, and
that,
we'll always need humans to approve these things,
yeah,
unless this is something immediate, like what I mentioned in the cloud. If something is exposed and we are confident that we're just doing minimal changes to close this, we're not modifying the data, we're just modifying access control to reestablish the perimeter. So
yeah,
when these changes are carefully tested, and minimal, we can accept them. But most probably, any larger modifications will require human review and approval.
right. Good safeguard. So 2024. Any thoughts, about what we think, is gonna, maybe big events or kind of incremental, improvements and things? Do you have any view about what you're hoping for 2024?
Yes, just looking at the way it has started, I think many organizations will continue their optimization.
Hmm.
They will continue their internal integration efforts to make their systems and organizational structure more efficient, in a way to do more with less, and to integrate network security and other systems just to improve their own efficiency.
Yeah.
So I think that this trend will continue just by looking at what happened in January.
Yeah.
I think there's still a lot of work in this space, and organizations
Yeah.
working to do this. And cybersecurity will continue to be critical. I think the new SEC regulation will
Mhm.
be top of mind for many, especially publicly traded organizations,
Mm.
because and it is not just the breach notification. It is
Yeah.
also the annual reporting that organizations need to provide with respect to their risk and cybersecurity management. And this reporting will require collection of data across the organization, ensuring that organizations have visibility on everything and properly
Yeah.
presenting their status.
Yeah.
So there will be a lot of work around this, uh, because this information, this reporting needs to be very precise.
Yeah. So can you remind everybody, what this new regulation is and, and kind of where it came down from? This was last year, but it hasn't been implemented yet or it's starting to roll out. So yeah, could you kind of
Yes.
like just make sure everyone's up to speed on that?
Yeah, so there is a new regulation from the SEC that is applicable to publicly traded companies. It came into effect in December 2023, so now it is effective for most cases. And it requires breach notification and annual reporting. So by breach notification, it means timely breach notification on incidents that are material to the organization, and annual reporting on risk management and cybersecurity.
Yeah.
And both things will require attention. Many people are talking about breach notification, and this is why this new regulation is sometimes called the new breach notification regulation.
Yeah.
But sometimes breach notification is easier. The annual reporting may be more challenging. The main thing that our organizations are discussing when it comes to breach notification is this definition of what is material to an organization.
Yeah. Mm.
Because
Right.
there are many incidents, cybersecurity incidents, that are happening all the time.
Yeah.
And obviously, not all of them are of interest to the shareholders. So organizations need to make this decision. And if the breach is material, this is when it needs to be reported.
Yeah. I think this is really just so important because like there's been shame, that's been kind of attached to an organization that has been hacked, and then all of a sudden it becomes public and then you're kind of in crisis management. So I think what this does now, it kind of like it's like, oh hey, I have no choice. I gotta report it. So it's so I think and the more that we hear about them, that's not kind of like trying to be hidden. So like now they've had to be reported, then I think maybe there might be more sharing, between organizations. And how do you mitigate whether these are particular attacks or whether these are just best practices around how do you lock down and secure, assets. So, it's there's a lot of toil that's going to be associated with this reporting. But I think, maybe hopefully my hope is for the long run is actually helps to improve and really makes this infrastructure more trusted. I think that's really the hope that I have for it.
Yes, yes. But we also need to help the shareholders to understand what is the meaning of it, various
Yeah.
breaches. Because if everyone will start reporting on everything just in case, then it
Oh,
will also be confusing and not helpful for those who are
yeah.
trying to make their decisions. So I think I hope that this definition of what is material and how to measure the impact of the breaches, this will be evolving to help everyone with this understanding. Is this material? What is the impact of this? Should we be changing our investment decisions?
Yeah.
Uh, because right now, especially if everything is reported um, without these considerations, there are many breaches that are not material, and this may add a lot of noise to the system.
Yeah. And I think that, you're right. So like if you're communicating every alarm that is not important or material, as you say, then you get numb to it.
Exactly.
And it's like then you're like, oh, okay, well, you just ignore it then after a period of time. So yeah, so good trigger, on the material discussion. Okay, anything else on 2024, Alex? We covered kind of a lot of ground here.
Yes, AI will continue evolving. We will see it everywhere. I think we will continue having these discussions. I'm curious to see the impact of AI to operations. I'm sure we'll be
Yeah,
seeing multiple POCs, experimentations, but I'm curious what will go really into production and
yeah,
how much of the Gen AI will be actually integrated with our day-to-day systems. So
yeah,
this is yet
yeah,
to.
yeah. Those are good. Yeah, I'm really, it's like, can we ever get? How close can we get to lights out operations? Is really going to be the question. It's like it's a good long term vision and view, for the industry.
Yes.
But Alex, this has been great. I think everyone got to know you better, from versus like, hearing you talk on stage. So now they know who you are and your background. So thanks so much for coming on and sharing so much. Thanks, Alex.
And it was fun as always. I appreciate
I,
talking to you.
I love talking to you. It's like we always, our ideas just kind of bounce off each other. It's like, really, it's just a lot of fun. Love it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alex.